Our next session, and kind of final session, final keynote, we're really pleased to have Josee Lemoine here from Backswatch Management, which is, I guess, headquartered in Manitoba, but now it's spreading its wings, and it really is across the country, which is exciting. We've been working with them for a long time. So Backswatch has also sponsored this conference. We're really pleased about that, and we have Josee here talking about why you need strategy in 2023, even if you got this far without one. So before Josee comes up, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about her. So she is the CEO of Backswatch Management, and she's a certified management consultant who has been helping management teams develop practical and effective strategy since 1999. She began her career after completing a Bachelor of Commerce honors degree at the International Business from the University of Manitoba's Asper School of Business. There we go. Starting out at MNP, Josee left her role as a manager in 2005. She then joined Encore Business Solutions as strategy leader and VP of Business Development. In 2008, Josee founded Pivot Performance, a management consulting company specializing in strategic planning and facilitation. And that business merged with Backswatch in 2019. So now she's the CEO, and in addition to that, she is also leading strategy and facilitation with Backswatch. So I don't see Josee, but I'm sure she's here somewhere. She wouldn't leave me up here like this. So please put your hands together and welcome Josee to the stage. I'll get the clicker.
Thanks. All right. All right, now I know how to use this. Well, hello, everyone. So when I saw that I was going to be the last speaker on the second day, I was a little bummed out, I will say. But it was very strategic on Heather's part to have me speak last, considering that what I do is strategic planning and facilitation and pulling it all together. And well, with the title of, why do you need strategy in 2023, you've now spent pretty much a day and a half learning about why you do need strategy in 2023. So I'm going to help you today try and take all of that information and do something with it, because I'm sure your brains are all swimming with information. So what are you going to do? So we'll start with a little bit more about me. So you've got the professional side of it. So there's two sides of my family. So I was married, I got unmarried, I'm remarried. So that gives me two sets of, so on the far right is, they're my biological children. So Alex and Aiden. And then on the left-hand side, we've got the cowboy side of my family, Lee, Molly, and Corey. So we have a great time. We live just outside of Winnipeg, which is in the country, but it's only 10 minutes south of Winnipeg, so we've got 10 acres. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you a little bit more about what are you going to do. So in the introduction in the on the website and everything, we talked about the so what. The so what is a trademark. So it is a tool that we've designed at Backswatch, something that I brought from Pivot Performance, and it helps you break down this whole information gathering before you do strategy, and then so what. So everybody knows the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. A lot of people go through it and just do the exercise, not thinking about what they're doing. I'm going to pull it all together for you today so you can actually do something with that information. But before we go any further, there's a lot of people that have been asking, where the heck is Terry? So I think Terry's listening. You're probably blushing now, Terry. But Terry is great. He's just not here. We brought different team members. That's it. That's all. So part of this succession, I'm CEO now, so I decided to bring some new team members. We've got Bruce over there. Kyron is hiding somewhere. Brenda, oh, he's there, and then Brendan as well. So our team is growing, and we thought we'd show some wonderful new faces. I think they all stood up with Movembers yesterday as well. So I'll tell you what we're going to talk about. We'll talk about it, and then I'll tell you what we did talk about. And so over the last couple of days, you heard a lot of statistics, a lot of information. We talked about war. We talked about drought. All of these great things. Again, so what? What do you do with this? How does this help you with planning? And so one of the things that we've always said is, and it's a term that's been used a couple of times already over the last couple of days, is it's a journey. And everybody's journey is going to be different. And everybody's journey is, some people go in a straight line because they're perfect. Terry, you said yesterday 3% of people are really lucky and achieve what they say that they want to achieve. We want to help you be those lucky people. And by writing it down, certainly is going to help you get there a lot faster. So focus on your journey. Don't be so bothered by what other people are doing. So if you had the pleasure of speed dating yesterday, I went over this slide 3 times in 15 minutes. I had to speak very quickly, so I'm going to speak even more quickly today because I don't want to take 15 minutes to go over this. But the 3 key alignments are very much, the premise with which we approach any kind of farm management, ag business consulting that we do with you, whether you're farm or ag biz. And if you don't know where you're going, how do you know you got there, right? So it's really important to try and figure out, where am I headed? You don't need to get it perfect the first time around, but you certainly want to start by writing it down and going, okay, so this is where I think I'm going. There's 100 different ways of writing a vision statement. You can write large paragraphs, you can write bullet points, you can turn them into more goal-like statements. Some people like to put objectives. We are not going to split hairs over which way you're going to do it. Just make sure that you know where you're going. Next big part, tell somebody so that it helps hold you accountable. But especially if you're working with those people, you want to make sure that they also share in that vision. So we'll touch a little bit more about that. So you've got a direction, you know where you're going. Now, what's this management stuff? What's this financial stuff? So when we think about why you need strategy even more in 2023 is if you know where you are, then that at least gives you that peace of mind that you know where you are. If you start 2023 and you don't even know where you are, that's just going to give you additional stress. So let's start by figuring out where you are. So the financial performance of your organization is really important. So understand, we've heard people talk about it for the last 2 days. So understanding your balance sheet, your income statement, there's a bunch of ratios that you should be looking at. All of those things are really important for you to understand. So that gives you a picture of the past. Your financial statements are a picture of the past. What you want is also where are you going? So part of the financial performance is also about where are you going? So what do your projections look like? Some people talked about your crop plan, your inputs plan. Somebody got very excited, I think it was Maggie, about a capital plan. Wow, isn't that great? Love the idea of even having all of your land listed, nicknames, owned, rented. That could be all part of everything. The equipment that you have, understanding where you are, where you need to go. Management, that's a big word. It's a really big word. So when we talk about management, it's the whole system of how you're going to get to that vision and achieve those financial targets that you've set for yourself. I want to say that that's probably, it should have been a really big circle. I think the management is the part that's the most difficult. And sure, you can understand past performance. It can be a predictor of future behavior, but you can change that future behavior. So just because you didn't know how to communicate in the past doesn't mean that you have to perpetuate that in the future. If you acknowledge that you're a terrible communicator, let's write something down and let's do something about it. So we'll touch on this again. These are not real farms. I just wanted to go from one extreme to the other. And so you've got Farm 1 and put it Ag Biz 1. Doesn't plan, doesn't take time to share the vision, never looks at financial statements, works in the business, not on the business. Maybe that's not you. I would venture to guess everybody at Ag Excellence will have some level of planning, but maybe not. Maybe you're here because this is where you want to head towards. Then we've got the other one, Farm 2. They have a plan. They review their plan 3 to 4 times a year. They renew it every 3 years. They distribute responsibilities. They meet with the advisors as they've been told. You take time to explore. Take time to get away from business so that you can learn some different things. Even start exploring different businesses. You work on the business. You can actually take vacation. I think I heard Kelly say that this year at the end of harvest, he wasn't there. He was on vacation. So imagine being able to do that. And then they have measures of success, so they know how they're going to evaluate that success. So the current context, we heard again a lot about it. So this morning, we've got inflation at 7.7%, I think is what I heard. We've got interest rates at 4.5%. Those are changing. They're going to go this way, that way. And so what does that mean? So how do you evaluate all of this? And what we're suggesting here is that you can approach it systematically. And it just helps to let you get through everything. So this is the So What Plus. So what? Lots of acronyms. We talked about acronyms. Here's some more for you. And so this is the how to do the SWOT, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We're going to do some internal analysis. The acronym is pronounced FISHMO. I can't take credit for that, but I also can't remember who I borrowed it from. So I'll have to think about it. And then the external analysis, the PESTLE, also didn't invent that part, but it helps you go through things systematically. So we're going to take this, and with all the information that you've gathered over the last couple of days, you'll start putting it into little boxes so you can go, what do I do with this? Well, that was really interesting, but I actually don't need to worry about that, so I'm just going to put it on this side. So I always suggest you start with the external analysis, the PESTLE. I'm just going to tell you which ones we're going through right now. Then you switch to the internal analysis. I call that a little bit of navel gazing, lint picking, whatever it is that you need to do. And then you get into the So What Plus. Looks really fancy, but this is how you marry. There's actually an important part about the SWOT, that you take your strength and you look at the opportunities and you go, great, if this happens, I'm ready. The one you're really worried about is the weaknesses and the threats. So if a threat happens and you're weak in that area and you haven't done anything, you're in real trouble. But then let's think about, again, some of the presenters. We're talking about risk. What's the probability of that threat happening, and what's the impact of that threat? So there's a lot of things to think about. And if you don't give yourself time to think about that, that's where you start worrying. That's where the stress levels go up. That's why you can't sleep. We want everybody to have ZQL here. Actually, we don't want you to have ZQL. We want you to sleep naturally, is what we're looking for. So we'll go through a little bit later, and I'll explain these statements, but it's exactly what I just said. And thanks, Maggie. You already asked everybody to stand up, but we lost a bunch of students. It looks like the bus is leaving. So we have a good idea of who's in the crowd. All right. So what's going on in the world around you? And what are you going to do about it? I've got a few pages here that I need to go through. There we go. So this is the PESTLE. Yeah. And so the PESTLE is an acronym. So political, economical, social, technology, legal, environment. You can create your own table format like this if you want. I like the first category, which is the thinking. I call that the brain dump. Don't worry about whether it's an opportunity or a threat. If you don't know, put it in the thinking column. If you know it's an opportunity, you can put it in the opportunity. If you know it's a threat, it's there. But you can start off with that. So then what is political? What are some of the things that you're looking at? So I did some brainstorming while we were in the sessions. And so this is our handy dandy workbook. And when we think about political, and if you want a copy of this, just reach out to me by email after. I will gladly share it. So we talk about government policies, subsidies, advocacy groups, federal, provincial, municipal influences, future legislation, different stakeholders, grants, initiatives. When you get into the economical, what does the province look like? What are exchange rates, commodity rates, job availability, seasonality issues? Socially, we get into cultural trends. We talk a lot about the labor market right now being very difficult for those of you that are looking for seasonal labor. You know, you've got, say, your 10 people that have told you that they're going to show up that day. 2 of them do, the rest of them ghost you. You have no idea where they went. All different things that you're living with. Technology, wow. We didn't talk a lot about technology. There's certainly a lot of conversations there. But what do you do with all of that? It's so prevalent in the equipment that you use. There's web applications you have to figure out how to use. We get into legal, so health and safety, different rules, and the environment. I think enough said about the environment. We can talk about that. So all of these areas, you start listing them out, putting them down. I would suggest that you don't do this alone. You can probably invite others that are in the farm business, the ag business, to do it with you. Maybe not together. You can brainstorm independently, bring it all together. I would also suggest a couple of different meetings because it can be a little long. You could break it up into the external and internal, and then have a third meeting when it talks about when we talk about bringing it all together. And so this is, again, it's about systematic thinking, bringing it, and you're not making any decisions at this point. You're just pulling them all together. So now what? Then we get into some internal analysis. So all we've done is we've done some thinking, we've put them into opportunities, we've put them into threats. So now let's go into some internal analysis. So when we get into this analysis, excuse me, my papers are all falling down. This is, again, just a way of bringing it a little bit back closer to the farm. So the other one is very macro, trying to get into a little bit more closer to home. So when we talk about the industry sector, thinking about what's happening in the industry that you need to be aware of. What are some shifting paradigms that you might be considering? What are some things that you are seeing others are having success with that you've been a little hesitant? Maybe you're not an early adopter. Some people are bleeding edge adopters. And so where do you want to be on that? In terms of your organization, so again, how are you managing? What are you doing well? What could you be doing better? What are some trends so you can look at some of the data that you have? Perhaps you've never looked at your data, so your financial statements, your trending information. This is a great opportunity to bring that together and look at it. Management, so if you've got a management team working with you, maybe you've even got a board of advisors. So you've got a select group that you've pulled together that come, oh wow, did I do that? I don't think so. You've got the advisors, so you might even get them involved in being able to assess how well you're doing on the farm. And then, hey, ask your employees how they think you're doing. You might be surprised. You might be surprised that they'll say you're doing things great. Then you might be a little bit less, you don't want to hear the other stuff, but it's always important to hear what isn't going well either. So then we get into FISHMO. And so again, this is just a workbook, a thinking tool to get you thinking about how to organize all this information that you've got. So we can talk about finance. So what are you doing from a finance perspective in your business? I've got a whole list again of things that you could be considering. So do you have financial reporting? Do you look at your financial reporting on a regular basis? So you might have an accountant, bookkeeper that's sending you reports, but you never look at them. So it's great, you've got them, but you need to be looking at them. We've heard so many times, again, from the experts in the room, that if you're receiving information from an advisor and you don't understand what it's saying, go and ask them to explain it to you. If you're paying for it, you've earned that right to understand the information that is being given to you. You might not understand the balance sheet the first time you go home, think about it some more, go back again with your questions. So policies, procedures around finance, expenses, so depending on small farm, large farm, we've got some farms here that I've heard that there are as many as 25 full-time employees, sometimes 40 seasonal just at one time. So expenses, how are they reimbursed? Do you have a process for that? Technology, what are you using for technology? Pen and paper is not technology, but there are certainly tools out there that mimic pen and paper. There's boards now that you can buy. You can use your stylus and write, and it'll recognize your writing and take your notes. I would say even from a small business perspective, you think that, oh yeah, it's all saved on my computer. Ask yourself, are you backing this up? What if your computer crashes? Have you ever thought about, what's next? So ask yourself those questions. Are you using current programs? And are you looking to some of the next generation and asking them to perhaps share some tools with you? Strategy, what are you doing there? Do you have a documented plan? So Stats Canada came out with all the census information, and I think it was stated yesterday again, less than 8% of farm families have a written succession plan. Some of them say they have a succession plan, it's not written, but that is storytelling then. So how do you extract what the succession plan is if the person that knew what it was is no longer around? So writing it down certainly helps. Back to 17 bank accounts. Who knew? Who knew that somebody had 17 bank accounts? So writing it down and making sure that it is being reviewed. And I'll give you some tips and tricks on that as well. So regular meetings, but no horror movies. We don't want meetings, bloody meetings happening. Every meeting has a purpose, and they don't have to last an hour. Did you know that? You could have a 5-minute meeting. The deck meeting could be literally 5 minutes. It does not need to last an hour. And also, every meeting has a purpose. Don't blend the purposes. One purpose, one meeting. New purpose, new meeting. And not everybody has to be at every meeting, even if they want to. Sometimes you need to keep it separate. So we get into the sales commodities. So we had Cargill presenting on the market sense. There are a lot of market advisors out there, people that like to do their own marketing themselves. Maybe you could use some learning. There's some market coaching out there. We've just integrated market coaching as one of the service lines that we've got, and it's just another pair of ears that says, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, what do you think about that? And it's just a different service approach. But when you get into the marketing or the commodity side of things as well, is back to planning, documenting the plan. What's your crop plan? What's your input plan? How does that tie into cash flow for the year? Back to all of those different conversations. So if you don't have any of those things, those are on the weakness side of this equation. We get into human resources. Really important to have a human resources plan. With labor being such as it is, you can't wait until a month before you're about to start seeding and start looking for your international employee that you want to bring in. It's probably not going to work out for you. You might get lucky. But chances are you should start planning now for next year. And so what are the roles that you need to fill? What are the responsibilities that each of these people have? So while you're going through this FISHMO and there's prompts in the questionnaire, says, do you have this or do you not have it? So if you've got it, it's a strength. If you don't have it, it's a weakness. And so when we get into strategic planning and what are some of the actions that you need to take, then you start thinking about, okay, well, we need to start looking at what does our organization chart look like? Back to some farms that are bringing in multi-generations or multiple families. Do you really have jobs for 15 people? Maybe you do, but maybe your 1,200-acre farm doesn't. So then what are you going to do with that? If there's no growth plans, so you have to start thinking about these things. Then we get into operations. So again, what kind of policies, procedures, do you show people how to, is it always a visual one-on-one? We talk to some farmers now that have got YouTube channels, private YouTube channels. They've got a QR code on their piece of equipment. And how do you change the oil in this machine? Everybody's got a smartphone now. Hover over the QR code, and there's your how-to video on how to change the oil. So a lot of different ways of doing that. All right. So strategic importance. So now we've done this whole, so we had meeting number one, or you sent everybody home, everybody did their individual thinking, you had meeting number one to talk about external influences, you've gone through the pestle, you've agreed on which ones are just crazy ideas. Donald Trump, his court date has now been pushed back to next year, I think. So is that really, it's a fun fact, but do you care about it? Maybe not. So that was fun to talk about, but not really relevant to the business. So you really go through all of the different elements. And you do that on the internal analysis, and then here's another thinking tool. So if you've got strengths and you've got opportunities, marry those together. So here's the strength, and you have an impact statement. We are really strong at marketing our grain. And so then the opportunity that exists is, that was a really bad example because I can't think of the opportunity that goes with that, but maybe the markets are really ripe right now and you can sell very easily, and so that's a strength and an opportunity. And you go through and you create statements. So what's the weakness that you have? How do you marry that to the opportunity? So there might be an opportunity out there, but you're not prepared to take advantage of it. So later on, when we look at what are the action plans, well, you have to strengthen that weakness. And we go through strengths and threats and strengths and strategies. I also like to go through and rate them. So once you've got all these statements created, so your strength, your impact, and the opportunity, which one of these are really important to you? And maybe they're just important in 3 years, but what's important today? So thinking back to your journey, where are you in the journey that you're in? So you start by not discarding the ideas, but just putting them in order of importance. Keep them there so that when you refresh this process, maybe in a year from now, that you've got them there and you can reevaluate. And sometimes your journey gets sped up and you can take advantage of some of these opportunities a lot faster. So does your plan align? What is it supposed to align with? Goals, yeah. Your vision statement, so that direction that everybody is headed in, right? So back to that vision, we had the 3 key alignments, right? So this is really important. Another exercise that you can do is have everyone write their vision for the farm. But there's 3 levels, and we've seen the circles, so you can have the ownership, So there are some people that might own part of that farm that are not actively involved in the farm. So their vision for the farm might be slightly different than those that are actively working on the farm, that could still be owners, but they're owners and actively on the farm. And then you've got family that might not be an owner, might not be actively involved in the farm, but still have an opinion on where that farm should go. And so again, a little bit like through the transition planning, let's hear what the vision is. So everybody goes through a process of documenting what that vision is. Also suggest that when you are creating a vision, that you think about your personal self. What is your vision for you? What is your vision for your family? And what is your vision for the business? And so again, breaking that down and having everybody pull it together. So the image that I gave yesterday during the speed dating in talking about the 3 key alignments is, imagine the dragon boat race, and you've got the drummer at the front of the boat, steady beat. And then you've got the really excited rower at the back. And then you've got the lily dipper at the front. And then you've got everybody else following in the rhythm of the drummer on that dragon boat race. It's not really efficient. You're not going to win the race. Not that it's a race, but in this case, when people are not aligned in the vision and where they want to go, it just creates a lot of confusion. Your resources aren't being used well. Your time isn't being used well. And so you're better off in going, hey, let's reset. So if you decided that you're going to take a trip every year for 2 weeks at this time, but you're not at that stage, first financially in the farm, and even perhaps you don't have enough labor to be able to step away from the farm, is it really fair? Is sure, it's your vision, you want to do that, but does it align? So it might mean that just because you want to do that, just because you want to get there, doesn't mean that you can get there in the time frame that you've decided. You might have to adjust. There might have to be some negotiation. And this is where you get into the importance of communication. So back to the management. So again, the systems, the processes. What's everybody's role? What are the responsibilities? What are your accountabilities? Who do you report to? So keep the business of the farming business, keep the family part family. The two shall not blend, except at the dinner table. But then you guys need to make a rule around that at the dinner table, it's family stuff. Hard, but it is possible. When you get into financial performance, again, so those financial statements, make sure that you are looking at them. So back to the vision, back to all these decisions that you've made. So we talked about the balance sheet, the income statement, but let's talk a little bit about those ratios. So perhaps in the vision, the long-term vision is to double or triple the size of the farm. So then there's working capital questions in there. There's debt servicing in there. There's equipment that needs to be bought, because when you're at a 1,200 acre farm and you're a 20,000 acre farm, different equipment requirements. Somebody likes Case, somebody else likes John Deere, so a lot of conversations that need to happen. So we pull it all together. Another tool that we use at Backswatch is Farmcaster. And so with our clients, we go back and we put 5 years of historical financial information, and then I call it spits out 19 financial ratios that you can look at very quickly, and it helps you to understand your current position. But again, it's your current position. So now you get to play around on paper, right? So we've got this vision of where we want to go, all these different ideas. You can start breaking it down and saying, okay, so if we want to be a little bit more aggressive in, acquiring some of the iron that we want, or we know that there's like 2 parcels of land that are coming up. What are we going to do? Which one are we going to do first? Can we do one without the other? If we have to do both, what does it look like? Am I going to put, 25% down cash? Am I going to mortgage the rest? Am I going to lease the equipment? So then you can start playing around. but you have to give yourself time again. So back to how does this relate to why do you need strategy in 2023? Is this all takes time. So you have to start little by little, biting some of these things out, getting some of these ideas organized, getting some of these thoughts pulled together so that when those need to make fast decisions, you're ready because you've got the information. You've talked about this, you've been planning, you've done some scenarios, and you're ready to take advantage. So back to, does your plan align? So imagine farm one that doesn't plan, doesn't take time to share, doesn't look at financial statements. I know, it's an extreme example. And then you've got farm two that's on the other end of the spectrum that does all of those things. So in 2023, with so much volatility, so much you're not sure what's going to be next. We talk about climate, we talk about the interest rates. If you have a current state and you know where it is, you know what your strengths are, you know what your weaknesses are, you know where you want to go, then it just gives you that peace of mind and it helps you to make those decisions. So implementing and tracking progress on the plan. I like this one. I've used this one for years. So in my bio, I've been doing strategic planning and facilitation for about 20 years across multiple industries. So not just in agriculture. It's been, I've worked with crown corporations. I worked with a lot of what I call corporate not-for-profit. I've worked with privately owned businesses. It's been in software. It's been in health. It's been all over the map. And the one thing that's very typical is like planning to plan. It's that dread of getting started, just get out of the gate. So stop trying to get a perfect book and just start I love the 2-page strat plan. It doesn't need to be longer than that. It's not a business plan, it's a strategic plan. The business plan has its time and purpose. I don't know if BMO's in here. Yes, she was giving us details on what you need to put in your business plan. But this is really top of mind ideas. So let's get some traction, right? I've got a few more notes here. I know I want to look at this one. Let me just bring my notes back up. So never mind for a moment what's going on in the world around you. Be in your farmyard, your municipality, your province, the country, the world commodity market. What's the plan? What is your plan for the farm? So you need a plan. You need to get to that point. And then you've reviewed, so you've got it documented now, and now it's time to put it forward. There's certainly a lot of different models out there. If you like that 2-page model, it's called Traction, Gino Wickman, and it's a very easy model to follow. And so it starts by asking you to state the values for the farm. And we talked about that. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. It really does. You could have the best strategy, but if you don't have a good culture on the farm or in your ag business, it doesn't matter how good your strategic plan is, it's just not going to get pulled together. So then you want a little bit of your BHAG, so Jim Collins, your big, hairy, audacious goal, that's your vision. Again, we talked about how you can pull that all together with the different family members, owners of the farm, employees of the farm. It's up to you to decide how broad you want to get involved in that 3-year picture. And then you get into that 1-year plan. That 1-year plan is really going to be how you're going to set the tone for the year. And that's a really good, hey Josee, that was a really good comment. Set the pace, who's gonna set the pace, right? So there's a very big difference in, we're gonna double the farm in 15 years. There's a very big difference if we're gonna say, we're gonna double the farm in 3. So are you a 1,000 acre farm? Are you a 2,500 acre farm? So really understanding those objectives are important as well. So in Gino's book, he talks about rocks. So the rocks are, what are you going to do in the next 3 months? So I'm sorry, in a lot of the examples, we tend to work with a lot of grain pulse oilseed farmers, so they have a certain annual cadence to their business. And so one of the farmers that we worked with, he said, we don't talk in quarters, Josee, because we talk in fourthlies. So they have 4 months instead of 3 months. So they have 3 fourthlies a year. I was like, that's really good. I'm going to steal that. So there you go. But I'm going to protect the identity of that client. But I know who it is. So yeah, fourthlies. And so you decide how often you're going to review that plan. What are you going to review? And I do have a cheat sheet for you. I'll share that with you as well. And so the other part about Gino's approach in traction is it's great to have, what are those milestones that you want to achieve, but inevitably there's going to be some issues. Truck breaks down, employees don't show up for work. And so those become issues and you still have to deal with those. So you have to figure out how to incorporate that while still moving ahead on your strategic plan. And then the other part that's really important is about measuring success. We talk about potentially number of acres. Maybe you want to move to 75% owned, 25% rented. Everybody likes to talk about cost of production. We've got profitability. What about employee satisfaction? In a tight labor market, you really want to make sure that those employees that you've got are interested in coming back. So measure that happiness and figure out how you're going to make them come back to your farm next year. The cost of employee turnover is real. Imagine if you don't have those QR codes and every year you're trying to teach somebody about how to change the oil on that piece of equipment. It takes a lot of time from you. Working capital, this is another good one. Time off the farm. Measure of success. So, and do you have the people on the team to get things done? So here's what, this is like, a scary chart, but it's, again, how can you break down these meetings, bloody meetings? So the daily meeting, and you don't have to have a daily meeting every day, all year round. You might do it during busy parts of the year. So employees, say 10 minutes, it's right on site, usually at the beginning of the day, so you can hand out tasks. And then it's really about what's on the list. What do you want to do today? And so some people have it on a board, on a flip chart. Other people's are using tools like Trello or Basecamp. It's an app that you can have on your phone. So as people are wondering, oh gosh, what do I do next? You just go to the app and here's their task list. Pick weeds today because that's where we're at. The strategy meeting, so let's say you've got something that you're working on. There might be a research project that you're doing, and so you've created a little bit of a tiger team that's going to work on this project. So that team will decide how often they should meet. So if you've got a special project that's going to take 2 people more than 2 weeks to do, you should write it down and give them a budget or a timeline or those types of things. And so they would meet and report back to, make sure they know who they're reporting back to. The monthly meeting is a management meeting, and it is important. I'd like to challenge everyone here to get monthly financial statements so that you can look at where are you at and what are some of the things that you've maybe let go a little too much. So that would be the management team. Don't spend more than 2 hours looking at them. You'll get better at understanding what it is that you're looking at. I said first of the month, but whenever your bookkeeper accountant has them ready. Your quarterly meeting or your fourthly meeting is where you pull out that strategic plan. We talked about the rocks. This is where you talk about the rocks. So issues are talked perhaps weekly or monthly. Rocks are talked about every quarter or every fourth. And so you're measuring progress. What's been done, what's not been done, how can we help you get this done? Then you get into your annual meeting. And it's great to talk about what went well. You will forget what went well. And so write it down. Keep a little bit of a history of what's going on. And then every 3 years, some people talk about strat plans going up to 5 years. I don't believe in a 5-year strat plan. It's too long. And let's pull it all together. I have 2 minutes. So why do you need planning more than ever? It's to keep you on top of what could or is impacting your farm business. Knowing where your strengths are in relation to the rest of the world, you have systems in place to review and plan, or plan and review and implement. If you never implement the plan, that's why most strategies fail, because you fail to implement. So by documenting and getting these meetings going, it keeps you accountable to moving it ahead. You've communicated the plan. If opportunities or threats arise, you know where you are. You can take advantage of those. When things are smooth, just keep working the plan. And I don't know, some of you might be some emergency volunteer responders, firefighters, different things like that. And so some of the things that need to be just rehearsed, that you go into Go Pilot, you're well practiced. You've done this before. You've been to the rodeo. There we go. Thank you.